being in that state, that flow state, where there isn't this idea of like, I do something to you or you do something to me. It's just like, how are we working together and where's the synergy? And that's informed by, the feeling body. It's not an ego construct of, oh, I've got to do this thing and I get that, so there's pragmatic strategy, but then there's what happens. So I think in life, it's that idea that, if we can consciously choose a state of flow rather than discord, then a lot of great things can emerge from that place.
Good morning, good evening, g'day. This is Conor and Kallum with the Unplugged Podcast number 45, streaming in from Australia. And today we have quite an incredible guest here. We have Lawrence Ellyard, who is the founder of the IICT, the International Institute of Complementary Therapies. Welcome, and I'll let Kallum give the world a little bit of a rundown about who you are.
Thanks, Conor.
Lawrence, great to have you here. Today's guest is someone who's played a massive role in shaping the global complementary therapy space. He's the founder and CEO of the International Institute of Complementary Therapists. He's supporting practitioners in over 1,100 modalities across more than 35 countries. He's also the author of 9 books on Reiki and spiritual living, with endorsements from legends like the Dalai Lama, Masaru Emoto, and Jack Canfield. He's a visionary, a grounded leader, and someone who's helped thousands of healers turn their gifts into thriving practices. Please welcome to Kinect Unplugged, Lawrence Ellyard. Great to have you here, Lawrence. I was just saying to you off air that I remember all of the trainings that I used to do in Sydney and around Australia. We'd always do a big shout out to the IICT because it was one of the great organizations that was supporting people who were learning complementary therapies, but also giving them an opportunity to create a community and a great place for dozens and thousands, maybe even hundreds of resources, as well as allowing them to get insurances as well. So great to have you here.
Yeah, thanks. It's awesome to be on the show this morning. So
we our network is made up of a wide range of different people, but there's a lot of people in the hypnosis and NLP space in different complementary therapies. Can you just tell us, because I've read a little bit about your story and it's quite amazing. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you got into this field before the IICT, before you wrote any of the books? What was, that first point of inspiration that you had that set you on this journey that you've been on?
Yeah, it was interesting. I started out in graphic design, art direction. So I was working in an advertising agency for a very short stint, and I felt actually quite disconnected. It felt very materialistic and very, obviously it's commercial art, right? And I think the turning point for me is I got a parking ticket one day, and I was going from work, going to this spiritual talk at this spiritualist center this is in Western Australia in Subiaco. And I was running really late, and there was one spot on the other side of the road, and I just pulled my car in quick and ran in, had to get something, came back, and, there was the parking inspector there. So I got this parking ticket, and it was like, oh no, Anyway, so then I was really frustrated. I went to this talk, and then there was a sort of Q&A with the person presenting, and I just said, and it was a bit of a check-in, and it was like, how are you feeling? I was like, I just feel really frustrated. I just got this parking ticket. And they asked me what had happened. I said, well, I was on the wrong side of the road. It parked my car in the wrong direction. And the teacher just cut through and just said, oh, a bit like your life. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I had this sort of, moment where I was like, I think I'm doing the wrong thing. And so I had this clear sort of moment where I was like, I need to pursue this, spiritual path as my path. And so actually, quit my job the next day, and I went full into spirituality I'd been doing it sort of part-time at that point. And then I just really went into saying, okay, this is my life's work. And there was that sense of this is my purpose. And that set me on quite a journey, to work with a variety of different teachers and train and,
So how early in your career was that? At what age were you when you had the teachers say that, and you had that epiphany, or if I'll call it an epiphany, but that
Yeah,
learning or
yeah.
understanding.
I'd say I was about 19 at that point, and
That's
yeah,
quite young to have that sort of epiphany.
yeah, it was. And then I went
Didn't
on
even
to
understand that.
study transpersonal counseling and psychology, and was studying a lot of different healing arts, esoteric energy work, all that sort of stuff, meditation. And so I had a really heavily mentored path. I had a lot of great teachers around me, really fortunate. And so I was heavily mentored, and this really went full time into, spiritual practice in a variety of different traditions, and did a lot of travel around that time as well. So that led to, me working in this industry. Yeah.
So you were working in the industry, and at what point did you think, I'm going to start an insurance company or a community for this industry? Where was the leap?
Yeah. So look, I was running a Astral Therapies college at the time, and running courses and so forth. And I'd had a lot of my graduates come to me going like, well, where do we go? And the main complaint that was out there was like, well, there's all these individual associations, and then you have to get an individual insurance policy based on the therapy that you did. So, if you're, not that NLP was that big back then, but for example, if you're an NLP practitioner, you'd probably join like a NLP association, or if you're a masseuse, you'd join a massage association, and then you have to get individual insurances for those things. And people were also often, bemoaning this whole, continued education requirements and having to do all these additional upskilling. It was very expensive and challenging. And I just heard it so many times, people go, oh, I wish there was like one governing body that covered the whole industry, and you can just get one thing under one roof. And, someone should really do that. And I was thinking to myself, I could do that. So I had that vision of like, well, why don't I create this, I think for me, it's like, if you have a big vision, then you can live into it, and then the universe will reflect it back and bring it towards you. So, came up with a big name, International Institute for Complementary Therapists. I wish I had a shorter name.
I was going to ask, when did this actually happen? Were websites around back then? Because having a website that long,
They were very clunky. But yeah, we, got that .com registered and whatnot.
Yeah, nice. What year are we talking around here? Was it like early 2000s, mid 2000s? I think
2002 is when we founded it.
Wow.
And,
Okay.
Yeah. And actually, my first member was the wife of my mentor. So she had created a dance therapy training, and no one had recognized it. So part of what we do is we get new and emerging modalities and get them recognized in various countries around the world. Or if they're like an import, like say it might be a particular therapy in the US, and the first person's bringing it to Australia, for example, then we get it recognized for insurance purposes. But yeah, the main thing with the IICT is like to create a recognition for anybody in the industry, and to, assess the standard, and ultimately to elevate the whole industry. That's really our vision, is to, support the people that are supporting people with their work, whether it's training or as a therapist or practitioners, that sort of thing. So it's a huge, diverse field. And so anyway, this lady who had created this dance therapy, then, she became the first member. And I remember issuing her first certificate. And back then everyone was like handwritten on envelopes, and, we're posting it out in the mail, which would cost a fortune these days.
Yeah.
Rather than like electronically these days. And so, her member number was, I think 501.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. And, she's still with us today. So, yeah. So,
You would have had to add another zero today, but you would have had to add a few more zeros today.
We definitely have. Yeah. Like the business and, the membership body's grown in leaps and bounds. So yeah, it's been a huge journey. And I feel like as a entrepreneur, and
for sure,
I know I've made, all the mistakes that one can make. So I feel like I could even write a book on how many, what not to do, but also what to do as well. Like that's the learning, like in that experience of, supporting and growing a business, then there's really a lot of great learnings and opportunities and to know what works well, So I think that's, having been in the industry for over 3 decades, there's a lot of learnings and gifts that can be shared. So, yeah.
There's that saying, the master's failed more times than the novice has
Yeah, for
tried.
sure.
So we started to connect around the early, 2010-ish, 2011, I think, from memory. So I had no idea that you had been going for 8 years before then. At what point did it become, it would have been a vision, I understand. And then at some point in the first 5 years, there would have been questions like, should I be doing this? Should I not be doing this? But I'm clear on my vision. When was that tipping point for you? When did you go, okay, the wheels, everything's starting to work in motion and we now have exponential growth happening here?
Yeah, I think for me, I was literally running it out of my garage. It's
Amazon.
Classic Amazon story, but it's actually true. Literally did that. And I was in Fremantle in Western Australia at the time, and I'd made the decision to turn my life upside down consciously and move to Byron Bay, to go to the other side of Australia. And when I did that, I left my the training school that I was running behind, and I just was like, okay, I'm doing this full time. So the business had already sort of gained a fair bit of momentum. I think we started with 50 modalities. Now it's about 1,500, or we sort of advertise at 1,100 because there's quite a few little obscure and unusual woo-woo type practices that we have in our
1,100.
Yeah.
I'm at a stretch with 20.
Yeah. So I guess part of what we do is, we embrace the strange and unusual, and as well as the, you sort of, most people would know that, your allied health practitioners and, the standard sort of things that have been around. But yeah, we sort of branch out into a whole range of different modalities and industries. So yeah, it's the whole idea is that, like, that's the vision, right? To encompass the entire wellness industry.
Yeah.
And with that comes, lots of quirks, and it's never dull and boring. That's for sure.
Never dull. No.
Yeah.
So we're talking a lot about business at the moment and kind of how that tracked, but it kind of, you haven't mentioned it yet, but it sounds like there may have been some sort of spiritual push that began your journey as well, especially because of some of the modalities that you were teaching. Because you were a practitioner in the beginning, right? You said that you were also running a training organization. Can you tell us some of what it was like back then for you? Were you teaching and coaching and doing therapy, or were you just teaching? What were some of the modalities that you were using at that time?
Yeah, so a whole range of things, but in terms of as a practitioner, I was doing energy work and counseling type sessions with people, and predominantly had a counseling practice, so in transpersonal therapy, and yeah, that was very much one-on-one type sessions, and that started to move more into facilitating workshops in energy work, and I was also studying a lot of martial arts at the time, still am, doing Aikido and various things like that. So yeah, it was a real blend of that sort of esoteric, spiritual work, as well as, practical sessions with people and so forth. So yeah, it was a combination of energy work, Qigong, Reiki, meditation, and yeah, counseling with people. So it was a whole range of different therapies. Yeah.
And okay, so you're doing this, you moved to Byron Bay. How did you see that the natural, complementary, and holistic health industry was on an incline going up? Did you see where the industry? Did you have a vision as to where you felt the industry was going? And it was, because it's grown a lot in the last 20 years. Cal and I have been hearing about for the last 20 years. So it's grown a lot. Did you see that wave coming?
I think so. Yeah, it was, it's really hard to look around corners, but it was this idea that, there always seemed to be a growing popularity and more natural therapies moving into the mainstream. And we're seeing that more than ever at the moment, particularly, I think, post the COVID era. There's definitely a lot more interest in alternative therapies. So but back then, I don't know. I was sort of following my nose, and
I was going to ask. It was a risk. It was a high risk.
Here we go.
There was a high risk there. There was a high risk. How did you convince yourself that no, this is it, or was it just intuition and a gut?
I think
we're audio's breaking up a bit there. We're losing you. Right.
Am I back now?
You're back now.
All right, perfect. What I was going to ask was, was it just intuition directing you, or was it something else? Because the risk would have been relatively high, I would have imagined, because you had no idea that the industry was going to grow the way that it did.
I think probably looking back, I think the thing that drove me was that blind faith almost, and like definitely an intuitive sense. But I think the thing that informs that really is courage. It's like the courage to step outside, to do something that hadn't been done before. And I really had left my other business behind in Western Australia. So it was a little bit like,
burn the boat,
going on a voyage and burning the ships and going like, we conquer or we die. Like literally, not as dramatic as that. I didn't think I was going to die. But I was just like, okay, I'm all in with this. And I just kept on going and following my nose and here we are, and it's been like a massive journey. But I think all the decisions that were pivotal when I look back, it was really, it didn't involve my head. It was really in my body. My body was like, this is all. Yeah. And that's very much how, we operate our business now. Like if we're looking at collaborations or if we're looking at, big decisions or people we want to joint venture with, it's got to be an absolute, can I say the word fuck? It's got to be an absolute fuck. Yes, I just did. And, so
it's 10:30 in the UK PM, so that's okay.
Oh, it's fine then. Yes, that's fine. But yes, that's the idea. Like it's got to be an absolute yes, or it's a no, so I very much live like that as well. It's not like, if it's lukewarm, it's not interesting.
It's not going to work.
I think it's got to have that drive behind it for sure.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest disruptions in the industry that you made was that you did all the modalities in one, because, a lot of the separate modalities have their own governing bodies, but you said, I'm just going to take the whole lot. We're going to be a place for everyone to come and everybody's welcome. How did you manage that? Because you said, you've got up to 1,500 modalities now. And I know there's a stringent application process in order to get people's modalities approved. How did you navigate that in the beginning, knowing that you obviously had a lot of experience with what you had been teaching and practicing, but then once you started to expand, how did you navigate that territory?
We were working with a lot of, different insurance providers, and they had more extensive lists that would go up to a few hundred. And then the rest really we added as we went along. So we'd get a lot of people, I guess in the business, there's a few different branches. There's our sort of member services, then there's the training providers. And in that training provider section, there's people who want to apply to bring a new or modality or something that they've been teaching or have created. So that's part of that process. So it's just gradually, we bring on at least a few dozen new modalities every year, which is in itself is a big process. And I mean, trying to explain these things to insurance providers. Oh, it's this thing, and they're like, "What is that?" And they're really at the stage now, like, "Oh, we'll just leave it to you. You've done your due diligence, and we're sure you're ticking all the right boxes." So they're just like, they wouldn't have a clue.
No clue.
You're almost you're the bridge between two totally different worlds there, finance and spirituality. Like Conor and I don't see them necessarily as being that separate, but the lines of communication are very, very different.
They are. Yeah.
And that's probably one of your gifts then, I'd say, Lawrence.
Yeah, I think it's, bringing worlds together. And I feel like I'm very much a connector of people and communities and things like that. That seems to be the sort of work that I naturally align with. So being kind of a bridge between those two.
Fantastic. So in the early days, and maybe even now, did you have to, in order to increase your numbers and maintain memberships, people would have to create thriving businesses, I would imagine.
Yeah.
With your umbrella of what you do you also offer support in some capacity to to your members? And how many members do you have now? Like, you started with one, obviously.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're about 11,000. 11,100 and something at the moment.
Oh, wow.
So gradually, yeah.
And is that globally? Is it only Australia?
Yeah, it's in, we're in 35 countries now. So, majority of our members, because we started the business, are in Australia. Then we have, New Zealand, Canada, US, UK, EU. Yeah. We're actually looking at the moment of expanding into Singapore and the UAE as well. So, we're always kind of looking at, how we can extend our reach. But yeah, it's one of those things that sort of evolved over time. And yeah, like I said, it's just been this idea of trusting instinct and just kind of, I think one of the greatest, tells of success is actually perseverance and just staying in and not quitting.
Grit. Yes.
Yeah, it's grit. And it really is a thing. And I don't think I've ever had a time where I've gone like, I'm out. Just kept on, leaning into whatever's there and just, moving through. So I think
it's gotten hard, but you've never said, I don't want this. It's been, you've gone through difficult periods, but you've always had that grit to keep putting one foot in front of the other. Even if you were going slower, it felt like you weren't going very far at all. You just kept that up.
Yeah. So I think, it definitely helps to have a strong optimism in life in general. And I really feel like I got that from my father. He's very much this eternal optimist, and even to the point where it's quite annoying at times. But like, he'll always see the good in any situation, like it's terrible. And, there's this interesting thing I was reading this the other day.
Terrible.
It's true. There's this idea, like, if you show a picture of the sun on the horizon, some people will naturally say, oh, it's a sunrise, it's a new day. Other people see it like, oh, the sun's setting and there's a storm coming, right? Yeah. So it's about like, what's your natural orientation? But I think any of those things are like a habit as well. You can develop, an attitude of that. An attitude of optimism is something you can actually develop. And that really helps inform everything because, I think seeing the world through gloomy eyes isn't a very fun place to be in. So I think ultimately it's a choice, and one can try that. Yeah.
And do you think that's been, would you consider yourself a coach for all your members as well? Would they ring you up and they utilize you as a support mechanism as well?
Yeah, that's something I'll probably be offering more in the future, but like we have quite a platform, sort of getting back to your previous question is like, what do we offer? We do have like one of our pillars is helping therapists succeed and grow their own practices. So we have a whole bunch of business resources in our members area where people can get, the right support and tools that help them in their having a successful practice. Because it makes sense, right? If we want to keep members, they've got to stay in business. And what we've discovered is that most people are really good technicians. They're great at doing their business. Are they great business people? Often not that great. They need, support like all of us do. And, like I said, I've had a really heavily mentored and I've had some great coaches in my life, in business and in, life in general. So I think it's really valuable to get the right people to support you because, particularly from people who have experience in your industry, they've already, like myself, made lots of mistakes. They know, oh, hang on, have you looked at it from this angle? And, have you considered it in that way? So, I've spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching and training and education. And I still do. Like I read about 50 odd books a year still, and I'm always constantly, not to have
upgrading and learning
a brain the size of a watermelon so that I, can regurgitate information. It's like reading and learning usually it hits something in you and then you regurgitate it out in your life. Yeah. And it's the idea that as you're sharing that knowledge, then it deeply embeds in you as well, so it becomes part of you. So I think, having an attitude of like lifelong learning, there's no destination, there's no arrival point. I think that's a really important mindset.
You mentioned you read around 50 books a year, but you've also written 9 of your own.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'd love to hear what they're about and what inspired you to write those and what people could find in them if they find, they seek them out.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't written anything for a while. I'm actually working on another book at the moment, which I'll keep under wraps, so we have to do a reveal at the right time. But a lot of the books I was doing was at the time in regards to like energy work, Reiki, meditation. I wrote a book on marketing. I did some work with, various spiritual texts as well, like in Tibetan Buddhism. So, so that was, I feel like I had a lot to say. So that was the media. That was the medium, and I found like a lot of the books just really flowed out of me. It wasn't like hard work. Also had an opportunity to work with Masaru Emoto, who did he was taking photographs of ice or water.
Yeah, is that the water photographs? Yeah.
Or the ice. It's like, how consciousness directly affects water, and we're 70% or so water ourselves. So it's the idea that consciousness is imbued in water, but consciousness can be imbued really into anything. So again, it's like able to sort of demonstrate like what effect we had, like how powerful our minds are, and how we can shape our reality with our thoughts, with our intentions, and so forth.
It's so interesting.
It's so powerful. Yeah. So we really are these. We're mini manifestors, right? And the bigger the trust in that, the greater the impact, I believe.
100%.
Trust. Trust in one's. Does it come back to oneself?
I think it does, but I think it's informed by, if there's like a strong value around contribution. So if it's that idea of if I'm showing up in service in a really authentic way in life, then that's probably the most direct path, in my opinion. If we're going, I want, I need, like if it's all like self-orientated rather than coming from this space of genuine contribution, then I think there's greater support that comes, and that's met, because it's coming. I think we're all motivated in different ways, but I think if there's more of a selfless motivation, there's a lot of support that could be, reciprocated back from the universe. Yeah.
You're the second person in a week that said that to us. We had a guest on last week, Vinny Shulman, who is a mindset coach for elite athletes in the UK and also the United States. He's been on Rogan a few times. He said the same thing. He said that when he's trying to create something in his life, he makes sure that it starts with some sort of service to others. Yeah. And he said that attribute to the way that he creates is the key to him getting that result more specifically, because he's contributing something to the greater whole. So I think that's a fascinating addition.
It's important to identify
some of the things that
one's values
we've heard
in
from
life,
the past,
like
whether it be The Secret or whether it be from NLP, where you have to
values on one hand,
not just utilize the visual representational systems, you've got to use all of them. We've heard about gratitude, but this new theme seems to be coming through some of
one of my values is contribution. So that's something like
conversations we're having with people around contribution
in my
as
life,
well.
but also I find.
Where did you discover that? Was that something that
we have it as one of our values
naturally within IICT?
Yeah, it's one of the core values is contribution and being of service. Yeah.
So if there's someone here watching, we lost Cal for a second. He'll be back. Right. If there's someone watching right now and they're in the complementary natural therapies industry, and maybe they're relatively new, maybe they've been around for a while, but they're looking for some guidance, some advice. You've done it. You've written the books, and now you have 11,000, up more than 11,000 members within your community. What could you give any advice for people in our community who are looking to, I don't know, go to the next level or yeah, any words of wisdom that you could share with them? Welcome back, Cal.
Yeah, he's back.
Thanks.
Yeah. So look, I think if we want to go from A to B, it's not a straight line. Yeah, it's a little bit like if you were sailing, you'd have to tack the boat across in this sort of zigzag pattern to catch the wind and find the way. So I think the whole idea is having like a strong adaptability consciousness. So it's like and I guess I'm talking about having like a really open or growth mindset. If we're very closed or fixed or like it's this way or no way, it's like I think that's also about like, getting a good coach or getting someone to mentor you if you can, because we can only see what we can see and we only know what we know, right? And that can be the limitation. And that also often represents like a glass ceiling that we're trying to break through in our life or in our business, whatever it is. So I think it's like, again, coming back to setting a really massive vision and then again, just working diligently, like what are the steps? Because it's one thing to sort of dream on the couch and do nothing.
Yeah.
You've got to get up and take massive action in your
So
life.
I'm glad you mentioned action. I can't remember who it was who keeps saying, I haven't met anyone who's done incredibly well in their business by sitting on their couch and meditating and hoping that a bag of cash is going to land next to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's the idea, like a friend of mine here, this is his words, not mine, but I really like it. And he was like, you've got to meet spirit halfway. And so that isn't what that means is like, yes, have the aspiration, have the intention. And, but then meeting halfway is getting off your butt and doing the work. Yeah. And there's no such thing as an overnight success. It's really that it's persevering. And yes, there's breakthroughs along the way and how wonderful, right? Because it would just be this hard slog with not much joy. So I think it's really that idea that, it's got to be a mix of imagining, envisioning your desired outcome and then taking the steps towards it. It really isn't going to just fall in your lap like that. I don't think that's anyone I know who's successful. They put in a hell of a lot of work. They really
take action. Yeah. What's that expression or that quote by Steve Jobs? Sometimes an overnight success can take 10 years.
Something along those lines. Yeah.
So tell me about the Dalai Lama, because I saw that pop up and I didn't dive into it enough to figure out how that connection was made with the two of you. You said that you had all of these amazing mentors and stuff along the way. How did you run into the Dalai Lama, and even further than that, have him endorse some of your work?
Yeah, so I was actually on a Buddhist meditation retreat in Spain at the time, and I was doing a translation of one of the Sanskrit texts from Tibetan Buddhism, so from the historical Buddha. And it's kind of like stanzas or poetry to describe, the essence of one's nature and mind, those sorts of things. So that's very much part of that tradition. So I wanted to do like a modern rendering of that particular text. And so anyway, I'd written this thing and it's like, now, got to get it published. And I had a publisher, but I thought, well, who could I get that would be, to support this? And I was hoping for like a one-liner, like, endorsement. And so I was making these wishes, this aspiration around a stupa, which is like a symbol of enlightenment. It's this particular, structure that they have in Tibetan Buddhism, and it's filled with sort of holy relics. And, so it's like a power field of manifestation. So I was meditating, reflecting upon this and just making wishes that, the book would become a great success. And then I had the audacity to write a letter, like an actual letter, to the Dalai Lama's office in Dharamsala. And I sent a copy of the manuscript and just said, it would be great if His Holiness would, have the time to take a look at it. And that was it, and I just sort of put it out there and let it go. And then several months later, I received this registered mail from India. And then there was this, this envelope with an, like gold embossed seal and all in his handwriting. And so he'd written or penned the foreword for the book. And I was just like staggered, couldn't believe it. And I was just like, oh, great. So then, I went back to my publisher and they're like, yeah, okay, we're going to get it out straight away. And
Wow.
yeah, and that's how all that happened. So again, it was just this idea of like, being audacious enough to go like, okay, I'm going to get someone like this to endorse this and then leaning into it and seeing what happens. So I think it was very much, it was very fortunate, as well, I would say. But yeah, that was just, it really bowled me over. I was like, oh, that's so great.
That's a mind-blowing idea that happened. And it would never have happened if, like you said, you weren't audacious enough just to give it a go. And I think a lot of people just don't do that. They don't just give it a go. I mean, Conor has been very audacious with some of the invites that he's put out to our guests, and we've been very excited with some of the people that have said yes to come to the Unplugged podcast. But I absolutely agree with you that audaciousness is such a great characteristic of allowing the magic to enter into your life and to allow those.
That comes back to that idea of courage, right?
Hi there, this is Conor and Kallum from Kinect Coaching. Hope you are enjoying the Unplugged podcast. Nothing lights us up more than seeing businesses thrive, especially in uncertain times. We have 32 combined years of doing nothing but mentoring and training businesses from around the globe in order to increase their revenue and thrive in uncertain times. So what we would like to do is share with you a little bit about what we've discovered over the last 32 years.
We've created this amazing business model called the Forever Business Model, and we want to give it to you for free. All you need to do is jump down into the description below. There's a link there called Steal Our Forever Business Model. Click on the link. There's a 9-minute video that you can watch where we unpack everything you need to know to implement it in your business right away.
So being courageous in one's life and it's another word for being audacious, I suppose, but it's enough to say, I'm going to see what happens and being really open to seeing how it comes back to you. And that what that really does, like if you're super courageous, it builds your confidence, because people often say, oh, I want to be more confident. Well, I'd say be super courageous in your life. That will give you the affirmation back when you take that risk, you take the leap, and then those things come towards you. So I think
it's so true. When in business, when things and business goes in ebbs and flows, when we're in an ebb, it's the action you take, the more outreach we do, the more action we take to connect with people, it always comes back in, but it doesn't necessarily come back in a straight line.
Yep.
Could come back in from someone I spoke with, 6 months ago, all of a sudden pops up out of the woodwork. It could be a new lead that we hadn't even discussed or even met before, pop up with an email or through our website out of the blue. But that only happens when we take the massive action out. It comes back in, and it happens every single time. This is not coincidental. This happens every single time. And it's what you're saying just reaffirms it. And what Cal and I love to do is blend the spiritual teachings with business, because when you can adopt both principles and apply them, it does become a science. It becomes predictable results.
It does.
Utilizing spiritual teachings.
Yeah. And look, I think the other thing people put people on pedestals, right? But the other fellow is just another fellow, right? They're just like me. So everyone has their hopes and dreams and pains and sufferings and challenges in life, So I think if you look at even people who are like really successful or stars or, they're just people, right? At the end of the day. So I think if you meet people on a very human and authentic level, like that's often refreshing, because, if someone is really successful, they're probably going through the challenges that come with being super successful too, right? And feeling probably a bit disconnected from others, or feeling like there's a separation. So like, why not bring that level of connection and authenticity? Like, I think that's refreshing, when people are sort of in that stardom. I think it could, I don't know, right? Like, but I imagine that people can feel a bit isolated within that, or in their particular circle. So, my Buddhist
that's
teacher,
that expression. It's lonely at the top. It's lonely at the top, and
it is. Yeah,
that's what that's about.
And I think it's important to have a mindset of always trying to expand your horizons. So generally, like if you observe people who are elderly, I'm not in that camp yet. But but it's the idea that usually what happens is as people get older, they tend to make their circles smaller and their routines get more fixed. And so I think if you can always be in this idea of expanding your horizons, expanding your network, your reach, your connections with people, you're going to avail yourself of a lot of new opportunities and inspiration.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think it's like always be expanding, growing is a mindset, and then the universe is going to reciprocate that in different ways.
So, Kallum, do you have a question?
No, I was going to say this is fantastic advice, and I feel like you're bringing so much nuance into the conversation. Like those subtleties are I think the difference that makes the difference, the contribution, the courageousness, the audacity, thinking about those things, expanding your horizons, all of these things are ways of almost awakening your consciousness to the possibilities and opportunities that are right there in front of you, but you're not allowing yourself to see. And I think that's what I'm getting out of this conversation with you, Lawrence, is that you have to set up these states within yourself to be even able to notice and see the opportunities that are right there in front of you. And that's how you expand your horizons. The idea around the pedestal before, I talk about this in my trainings all the time, is you need to dismantle those pedestals that you put people on in order for you to have the type of success that you're wanting to achieve. Because whilst you're pegging someone up above you, there's this energetic push that you create between where they are and where you are, and you repel yourself from achieving that because you're saying that's above you, or that it's an archetypal thing. It's an archetypal thing that people have in their minds that then set up their unconscious mind to think, well, that's not for me, that's for them, and they're up above me. So I think for me, this conversation's just brought up so much nuance in the idea of how to do business. You also mentioned earlier around, staying in the game, not ever giving up, not even considering that. And that's these subtle nuances in achieving success, I think are like incredibly valuable for people.
Yeah. And I think it's also about being someone who is up front, like at the front, like if you go to a talk, get the front seat, be seen, be visible. If you meet someone, greet them and go like, oh, don't hold back, because it's like, oh, I think people play small in their life because it's a safety thing, right? And we choose to, approach life like, life is this ocean where we can take whatever it is as much as we want. And people go to the ocean with an egg cup and they go, oh, I'll just fill this tiny little bit and I'll just take this small bit for me, right? And it's like, no, the universe is like so incredibly abundant and expansive. It's not contained. So, it comes down to like, well, self-worth, self-love. And often, we find we're trying to seek it out externally, from our relationships or validation outside or whatever. And ultimately, like that, all that's pretty empty, right? Because if you're not having that sense of self-love, self-worth, and cherishing that relationship with yourself, then you're not going to find it out there, right? And a lot of people say, oh, I went for the thing or the one day when I've got this, then I'll be happy. And it's like, well, it's right here, right now. Like your happiness is a choice and happiness is right in front of you. You just have to it's like getting the sleep out of your eyes and going, oh, wow, how incredible. I woke up this morning. What an opportunity. Like what a gift. I didn't die in my sleep. Amazing, right? So when people are really unwell, or if people have been faced with like a near-death type scenario, they're often the ones that go, oh my God, what a precious moment. Yeah. Every moment's amazing. So it's good to get on that train sooner than later. A lot of people realize that, they interview people who are dying, all the research around.
They always say,
it's that idea of like, I wish I'd take more risks. I wish I'd cherished. I wish I'd said I love you to the people I care about more. I spend more time. Yeah. So I think it's if we're going to chase anything, chase the richness of life and the beauty of life, and do what you can to support others. Like that's where the real gift and magic happens.
I resonate with that a lot. I watched a little, videos that pop up on Facebook, and it was one that popped up a couple of times in one day, interestingly. And it said, the billionaire on the plane is reminiscing of the old days and how simple it was. And then the millionaire is hoping that they had the plane, and the person who earns 300,000 is wanting to earn 1 million, and the person who owns 50,000 wants to earn 300. And it's like a cycle. And when you get to the end of that cycle, it's all they want is that simplistic life that they had in the early days. But that was the pathway for them to chase it. And part of me thinks, what's all this for? Why do we do all this? At the end of the day, what is it that fills me up? And it's the gratitude. It's the gratitude that I have for those around us. And part of me feels, if all the materialistic things were lost, what would I have left? I would have myself, and I'd have my family, and that my cup would still be full.
Yeah, exactly. So what, you're talking about is connection. Yeah. And, like the name of this podcast is Connect, right? And it's all around relationships. It's the quality of the connections that we have, and supports, and that there's natural reciprocity that happens when we come from a place of service and love, from kindness. That's the richness in life. That's so.
It's what Cal and I teach this in our trainings. As you know, we sort of teach a number of business trainings, and one of the first things we drill in is come from a place of support, come from a place of service or helping, as opposed to I'm going to sell you, or I'm going to book you in, or I want you to do this. That changes everything when you come from a place of, okay, you genuinely want to improve something, and we know how to help you get there. So let's focus on that.
Yeah, and I think
the dynamics tremendously.
Yeah, I agree. And when we are coming from that place of service, we're not giving to get necessarily, right? So, I'd say that's probably the way to go, is to really give without expectation of return. Or like in Japan, they have this wonderful word, intuku. Intuku means doing good in secret. So it's this idea that we do the thing not to be getting the accolades, or to be like, oh, isn't he so wonderful? It's like you make a good deed in secret, simply because you're not seeking recognition. And of course, the recognition reward comes. It doesn't always have to come from the thing that you do. It might come in other ways, So it's sowing seeds, that your future self will look back and go, oh, I'm so glad you did that. Right. And just the same way you don't plant an apple's seed in the ground and the next day you get the tree with all the fruit, right? It's going to take time for that to ripen and grow. So yeah, I just think, this idea of walking through life and dropping these seeds of good action, good deeds, like all that, like how rich is that as an inner landscape? And of course that, you're cultivating all of that within you. And of course that starts to ripple out, and it comes
a whole orchard behind you by the time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you do. Yeah. Yep.
You're speaking our language, Lawrence. This is a lot of what we teach in our programs, and it's the philosophy behind the Forever Client, philosophy that we've created with Kinect Coaching. And the Kinect is got a K in it because it's about feeling, the kinesthetic feeling that people get when we connect with each other. So this is all resonating very, very well, and this has been really awesome to get your take on success and how you've blended, the spiritual practice into business. And like I said before, Conor and I don't see a separation. We see that, business is one of the biggest spiritual acts you can do, because it's about learning to create in the physical world. So it's great to hear your take on that and how you've been able to be so successful in what you do as well.
Yeah, and look, there's parallels with that with like some of the martial arts trainings I've done. So, I do Aikido. I've been doing that for 30 years. And that's the whole idea, like, something comes towards you and you don't fight it and you don't run away. You harmonize. You create harmony out of discord, and you find resolution. And so it's this idea, Aikido is this, translates really like the path, or, the path of peace, or the art of peace. And so it's like blending with what arises, and and not fighting or fleeing or not freezing, because that again comes to this idea like I take massive action, but I do it in a way that's in accord with nature, which is harmonious, so I can find resolution. And at the same time, it also means, you're not soft or passive. Yeah. There's times when you flow and there's times when you strike and you're very decisive and clear. So like in that art, there's a couple of different things we do, like with weapons, like with the sword is like cutting through. And then there's like the jo, like a wooden staff, and that's constantly in flow and movement, and blending. And so one aspect you could say is very feminine, and one aspect is very masculine, and again, where's the balance point between those two? So again, it's like in life, sometimes we just got to flow with whatever's, like we're being carried by the river, and we're going over rocks and we're going down this way and that way, and we don't know what's going to happen. And other times we're like, this is my, putting my staff in the ground and going, okay, this is my declaration of what I'm creating. And then just being really clear with that. And, so, sometimes we have to be very direct, and other times we can be very much in flow. But of course, in life in general, and I think in spirituality, being in that state, that flow state, where there isn't this idea of like, I do something to you or you do something to me. It's just like, how are we working together, and where's the synergy? And that's informed by, the feeling body. It's not an ego construct of, oh, I've got to do this thing and I get that, so there's pragmatic strategy, but then there's what happens. So I think in life, it's that idea that, if we can consciously choose a state of flow rather than discord, then a lot of great things can emerge from that place. Yeah. As soon as the ego steps in and like, I get this and then you get that, it's like, well, again, we're not then in that state of service, right? We're in that state of like, I want, and it's like, if I'm again coming for that place of gratitude and flow, then of course things will flow. That generally that's what happens. It naturally finds its path. And the same way, like, water can kind of find its way through a landscape, right? It'll find the path of least resistance, right? So a lot of that training informs that as well for me. I think it's that idea of like being in flow state is like that ultimate joy. And, I'm a total flow state junkie, right? I'll seek out, whether I'm on a snowboard, or if I'm surfing, or if like having incredible connections with people, or just flowing conversation, like whatever it is, like it's in the moment of bringing that spirit of play. And, you get, I have that with my kids as well. Like, you can just be silly and be joyful, and, it doesn't have to make sense. It's in imagination. So, I think kids are great at reflecting really honest feedback about how one is, right? And particularly when they're really young, there's like no filter. And you're like, oh, God, and like how cool, to be so uncalibrated in life.
Yeah,
to be able to do that, right? And just like people go like, whoa, okay. So for me, like that's that state of like, you're really in your authentic leadership when you can just be so clear and direct at times, and, doing it with care, of course, consideration. But, like I think there's so many teachings that are found outwardly, and we go, okay, how does that fit for me? What can I take on? What can I work with here? Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Lawrence.
There's two parts to this conversation. There's the spiritual side, which I love hearing about, and then I'm fascinated, and Cal's fascinated with the growth of business and creating something from nothing, which is in some schools the definition of magic, which is creating something from nothing. And the journey that you've had for nearly 25 years with coming up to 25 years with IICT, and so. The spiritual conversation, we could probably have you back on for a whole nother podcast. With IICT, what is the next step for you? Where are you going with that? Where do you think the industry is going?
Yeah, look, I think it's definitely expanding the whole wellness industry. If you look at what's happening politically in the US, there's quite a movement, the swing back to like family and tradition, and embracing wellness in general. So I think there's a real wave coming, and I think that will filter down out through the rest of the world as well, which is really cool. I guess some of the things that we're wanting to do is just to really expand our reach and touch as many people's lives as we can and support them as best we can. And yeah, there's a number of different opportunities in that space that we're working towards. So I think, looking after people who are looking after people is really like our mission to elevate the entire wellness industry globally. And in that pursuit, then the right people, opportunities, the people that resonate with that vision will naturally come. So for me, I'm just I'm trusting that process is unfolding and will continue to. And again, it means getting off your bum and doing something, right? It's not.
So I asked you, I think earlier on in the podcast, do you have any advice for people who are in the industry and they need some pointers or some tips? Because I'm sure you've seen so many business owners in this space come from very basic beginnings business-wise and now have a thriving practice or a thriving training school. Do you have any advice or tips or knowledge that you could impart with them that could help them with their journey?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's lots of practical, pragmatic things one can do to grow their business. And I mean, I probably won't get into all that because that's a whole other topic on its own. But I think, there's so much resources and free stuff out there that you can use. But it's like, again, learn something. If it resonates and it connects with you, then take massive action and implement it. Don't just go like, oh, that was interesting. Like, don't be a consumer, be an activator, create in the world. And that's where the magic will happen, right? And I think that spirit of, not giving up and continuing and playing big. And it's a little bit like, fake it till you make it. And it is. And it works. And there's a reason why it's a saying. But when I say fake it, I mean like fake it so authentically. Not from like, not from an egoic space, but from this idea of like, how can I really help and connect with others and be of service? I think that's super important. Yeah. So I think, having that attitude and again, just being, being really open to opportunities, being open to learning, expanding your horizons, study, get additional skills under your belt so that you can apply it. And also like really have the idea of like, you don't have to be a master of everything. Like in entrepreneurship, like people end up doing everything, right? When you start out, you're doing the thing that you do, you're running the business, you're doing the admin, you're doing your bookkeeping, you're getting to the supplies you need to do the thing you need to do, right? Over time, if you want to accelerate, you need the support of others. You need to enroll others to do the areas of expertise that will help you grow and do what you do best. So, in our business, we often once a year or so we do a bit of a stop, start, keep exercise. So we look at what are the things that we should stop doing that's in the way of us working in our genius. And then what are the things that we should stop? So we should, start to do because it's almost like the flip side. Well, if I stop that, I've got space now. So what can I do that's actually going to be super productive? And then also identifying, your genius, like what are those things that I should keep doing that works? Yeah. How can I double down on some of the stuff that really works? So it's the idea of staying on the vertical. And entrepreneurs tend to have a real ADHD response to anything that comes their way. They go like, oh, I could do this, I could do that. Yeah. And it's actually, again, like drawing in what really matters. What are the 3 to 5 things that I can focus on, this quarter or this week or whatever it is, and just do that. And it may not be super sexy. Like it might be like, I've just got to go and talk to my customers or I've got to outreach and do the grunt work. It's this whole idea that it's not always, bright and shiny and exciting. Sometimes you've got to empty the bins. You've got to get on and do the thing that you don't really enjoy but it's a means to get you to where you want to be. So, and again, this is like the idea of the work, right? The work that we need to do. until we're at a point where we can have others support us in that. Yeah. So I'd have that idea that, it does take effort, and but it's an effort with the right attitude that supports that growth.
Nice. So a lot of our viewers are Cal. Sorry, Cal, did you have a question?
No. I don't know how you've done it, but you've just been able to condense so much gold into such a short amount of time. That's all I was going to say. This has been great.
Yeah, cool.
It's very, very wise. So a lot of our listeners are complementary natural therapists, coaches, living around the world. And if they wanted to find out more about IICT, about yourself or your team, or how you can help them, it's much more than insurance. From what I understand, it's grown beyond. It's a community and standards, and a lot more than just insurance. So if they wanted to get plugged in and be 11,101 member, how would they go ahead and do that?
Yeah, I think our website would be a good starting point. So myiict.com is our site, or you can check me out at lawrenceellyard.com for my sort of what I'm up to. But yeah, we're on socials as well. So, Facebook and Instagram and all that. So yeah,
okay.
I think if you just put in IICT, then, you'll end up, all our stuff's there is online, and there's resources and free stuff that we give that really helps people. So I'm a real big believer, give more than you need, offer massive value. And then people will naturally want to do work with you. Yeah. It's not about the sell, it's really about it's the give and then reciprocity. So again, I'd say it's for the aspiring practitioner or business owner, have that idea that, come from knowing your worth and your value, and then show up with generosity and the spirit of giving, and you will naturally, it will come back, right? In force, and just keep showing up that way. Then that it's a powerful force to be reckoned with, for sure.
Cal, that resonates with us. Yeah, significantly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all embedded in our philosophy and the way that we do business. So it's nice to hear it from a different perspective.
Yeah, well, great minds, as they say. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. It's been really rich to share, and what I like about what you guys are doing, there's no script, right? It really is. So I came into this not having a clue what I was going to talk about, which is actually, I like to show it that way too, because there's a real authenticity about it. So yeah, I just want to thank you guys for bringing that level of authenticity to, the work you guys are doing, because I think that's really needed in the world. And I think if more people show up that way, then, wow, what an incredible place to be, right?
Making a difference.
Yeah.
Definitely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Well,
really appreciate having you on.
you.
Yeah.
You
awesome.
bet. Have an amazing day. We'll see everyone soon.
Okay. Take care. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
See you guys. Bye.
Thank you very much for watching the Unplugged podcast with Kallum and Conor from Kinect Coaching. Hope you loved this guest this week as much as we did. Cal?
What we wanted to remind you of is that if you wanted to steal our forever business model, which is perfect for all sorts of businesses around the world, to start to build extra revenue in your business right away, get instant access by clicking on the description and going into the link below, watching the 9-minute video where we unpack everything. See you next time.